Welcome to another edition of Dianne Andrews in Black and White, an open discussion about the issues you don't want to talk about and the arts you need to know. Now, here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Hello, I'm Dianne Andrews, host of Dianne Andrews in Black and White. I'd like to thank my in-studio audience today for being here. I'd like to thank you all out in TV land. We've really had a great reception from YouTube.com. We've had over 2,000 people view the show in less than 4 weeks. So we appreciate that a lot. I'd also like to thank my guests, but before we get started, I'd really like to thank Thought Broadcasting for putting us in northern Louisiana. We're on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. every Wednesday in Shreveport, Monroe, and Alexandria. So now we cover the entire state except a portion of New Orleans and part of Mississippi. So thank you very much, and we appreciate all that you've done. When I decided to do this show, Walking While Black, I chose a date that was a very commemorative date. Today is 9/10, which is one day from 13 years ago from the greatest disaster that ever happened in the country of America. They say people that are prone to forget, it may reoccur. So let's always remember 9/11. I'd like to take a few seconds and just bow our heads a moment and think about whatever you'd like to think about of those courageous firemen, of those volunteers, of people who helped each other down the stairs, and of all the people that lost their lives when they sent four planes, our planes, 2 of them into New York, 1 into the Pentagon, and the great people on United 93 that gave their lives so that plane would not continue. Let's bow our heads. Thank you. Today I'm doing Walking While Black. I have 4 great guests with me today that I'm very happy to be here. When people hear the name Walking While Black, I think they think it's going to be to bash policemen or to talk bad about the black community. It is neither. It is for us to get together and try to form solutions because we know there's a problem in America. There's a problem with our police. We know there's prejudice in America. We know there's too much violence in the black community. We both have problems. And here today, we're going to talk about some of those problems, but we're also going to talk about solutions to those problems. In doing so, I have, and very happy to have Chief Knaps with me from Baker Police Department.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Baton Rouge Police Department and Sheriff's Department were invited, but the dates didn't match their availability. Arthur Reed Silky Slim. I just met Silky last week, and everybody said, you know Silky Slim. I did not know Silky. But Silky is an ex-gangster, an ex-Crip, an ex-convict, but now what he is a motivational speaker in the black community to help our youth stop the violence, stop the killing. He's also a radio talk show host, he's an author, and he has a DVD. On my right, I have Dr. Reverend Lloyd Benson.
Thank you.
He is the leader of World Link Churches and Ministries. He also has an organization named Save the Cities, which I'm proud to be a member of. We recently marched on the capital of Baton Rouge, but he does not only do Louisiana. He's been doing this for 14 years, and he does it around the country. Next to him, I have our esteemed McClanahan, the president of Baton Rouge NAACP. Mike works in healthcare, and Mike also confronts a lot of problems in the black community. Let's start with Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how hard it is to be a policeman.
It's very hard. I don't know if you're aware or not, but every 58 hours in the United States, a police officer is murdered in cold blood. That's 1 every 58 hours. Maybe he's in his car, eating in a restaurant, going on a domestic violence call. It's very tough to be a police officer in this society that we live in today. It's a lot of responsibility and a lot of accountability to be a police officer.
But I think, Chief Knaps, you would agree there are some problems also with our police department, and there is prejudice. As in Baton Rouge, the last week it was in the paper, that, I think his name was Michael Ellsbury, was text that he hates to see and to work with those African monkeys. And he called black boys wearing saggy pants a bunch of thugs. And that's not a nice thing. And I know he is no longer with the Baton Rouge Police Department, and I don't expect you to answer for the Baton Rouge Police Department or for him. But tell me what you think about that.
I'd say that there are a few bad eggs in every basket.
Right.
We just have to wean them out. It doesn't affect the rest. The majority of the police officers in this country, in this state, and in this parish are wonderful servants. They're good people wanting to do well.
Tell me, a lot of people, as we know in Ferguson, Missouri, the latest, not only the latest, we have Victor White, the Houdini handcuffs in New Iberia, Louisiana, young black boy who they found, I think, a joint in his pocket. He was patted down and then handcuffed behind his back. In 20 minutes, he was dead, and miraculously was able to get his hands out of the handcuffs and find a gun and kill himself. When we see things like that of any color, people have a question, and he's the third boy in America in a year and a half for that to happen to. And they call it the Houdini handcuffs.
Yeah. It's, I can't answer what happened there. Yeah. I know that we find items stuffed under seats of police cars in prison cells or holding cells after people have been patted down. Sometimes it's poor police work, and sometimes I don't know what the answer to this question is to what happened down there.
Yeah.
But I do know this. I know that the administrators of those police departments in this area will get to the bottom of it. I represent all the chiefs in the state of Louisiana as the chairman of the legislative committee, so I'll work with all 363 of them. They're good people, the majority of them. We do have a couple that go astray. You've seen things on TV here recently.
Right.
We're all accountable. The more authority you have, the more accountability you have. So you need to be careful. When you go out and you vote for leaders, sometimes you vote for a mayor that appoints a chief, and sometimes you get, like in Baker, to vote for your chief. You need to pay attention to who you put in those spots, because they're going to be placing leadership that will make these decisions. I can promise you this, in my department, I can't tell you that I don't have anybody in my department that has racial thoughts, white or black. They don't have them out loud, because if they do, they won't be there long.
Well, that's what we expect, and we're happy to see that we have a chief like this in Baker. Dr. Benson, we've heard the chief speak, and we know that it's a very difficult job, being a policeman. Your life is always in danger.
Yes.
But we know there's some bad apples in the police force. And,
Yes.
But we also know 91% of all black youth are killed by black youth or black men.
Black men.
That is a problem of violence in the black community.
Yes.
In 1960, Martin Luther King went to St. Louis, a suburb of Ferguson. Ferguson is a suburb of it, and said we're 10% of this population while we're 58% of this crime problem. That is our major problem in the black race. We riot and we get upset about a policeman. But you've been doing something for 14 years named Save the Cities.
Yes.
Tell me what prompted you to do it. Tell me the effect, and tell me the plan for the future.
Well, thank you first of all for being on your show today. Save Our City Now Prayer Initiative, we target not just one particular area of the city. I feel that crime has and violence has no boundaries as far as community-wise. But we have seen a lot of things take place in every city. With Save Our City, we deal with every sector of that city and officials, from the clergy to the political arena, trying to find solutions of coming together to make something take place to curb what is happening. Now, me, myself, before I got into the ministry and, got my life together for us being saved, I was in gangs for years in Chicago.
Oh, really?
My brother was one of the major drug dealers out of the north, and when I got
did you move from Mississippi to Chicago? Because I know you were born in Mississippi.
Yeah, born in Mississippi and went to Chicago during that time to join in with my brother at that particular time when all the corruption was going on in the streets of Chicago.
So you went there to become a gang member with him?
Well, not really. Just when I got there and got involved and saw what was taking place, and it's drawn me into what they was doing. And from there, I saw the danger and the risks of what was taking place, and even some of my best friends being killed in prison. And one of the things I believe that took place, and that's why I believe in the spiritual element and working, because my mother, who was a very praying person, always would pray, not knowing the danger I was in street ganging and drugging and all of this. But once that changed my life from the spiritual side, using the spiritual element, I began to go back and to target the area where my life was almost destroyed.
How old were you then, Dr. Benson?
I was in probably around 17, 18, 19 years old at that particular, yes.
I'd like to focus a minute on Silky Slim also. Silky, why don't you move over a little bit this way?
Yeah.
Silky, since you both had something in common and you both found God and changed your life, since Silky was an ex-gangster, we talked about this before. Tell me, were you that same age? I think you started at 10 or 12, didn't you, Silky?
I started real early, but I didn't find God. God actually found me, because I wasn't looking for God. And I tell people all the time, people always ask me, well, how come you didn't go to God? I tell people that it's very hard to even look for a God when you have people that treat you like you are a God. So I enjoyed the life that I was in. I'm different from him, but he's saying that he didn't know the dangers that he was in. I understood on the dangers that I was in, but I was looking for something that people would respect. And I found that people respect violence more than they respect God.
Do you think, is that in the black race only, Silky? You think people,
I think that's period. I mean, we live in a very violent country. Why are they so violent? Because they demand respect. And you mostly see individuals that have that type of authority using power on the powerless. So when you see a world like that, you look for that type of respect. So I know that people respect violence more than they respect God. Even when you really look at the core of religion or living, people respect the devil more than they respect God. In fact, that's why they go to God, because of what the devil should do them if they don't do right by God.
And you agree to that, Dr.
Yes,
Benson?
yes. It has always been the attraction of the violence and what is taking place, that it got more attention. It's just like
like in the gladiator days when people like to see violence, it's the same.
The thing is that what is hopelessness and not knowing if there's respect. And that's what most we look for. Matter of fact, I can understand what he was saying as far as looking for that respect. If you didn't get it in the home, if you didn't get it from those around you, you want to demand. So sometimes we go out to do things.
Now, did you have a mother? I heard you talk about your mother, but your father. Did you come from a two-parent home? Because that is a problem, as we know right now. 70% of black youth grow up with a matriarch, with a woman in the home and no father.
It's a problem because we say it's a problem. I mean, when you really look at the core, the essence of the woman, they have some single mothers that have raised very prominent men.
Oh, yes. I'm
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Look at Dr. Ben Carson's mother, who couldn't even read or write.
Jesse Jackson, Minister Louis Farrakhan, and President Barack Obama
but
were all
overall,
raised in single-parent homes.
And I'm not saying they do a wonderful job. But as we know, little boys need a role model.
They need a man.
Don't they take, and I mean amen. And don't they take that drug addict person dealing drugs because he has fast money, he drives a pretty car, and what do you see there? You don't see the man in the hood, right? The respectful man that we call respectful now.
Well, you have to look at conditions. When you're at home and you're in poverty, the law of self-preservation kicks in. It's important for me to have. So I will definitely beg before I steal, but I steal before I starve. So you have individuals that's in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you will go into any arena to try to get what you need so that you can survive.
So do you think that's why it's more black on black crime? Because the arena and the environment they're in is a black environment. So they end up fighting each other?
Definitely.
We end up fighting each other.
Who's ever close to you?
Yeah.
I mean, you ain't gonna go in Central Park and start a fight with somebody because they live there. You're gonna look for those individuals that's right next door to you, because those are the individuals that can agitate you and keep you aggravated.
Tell me, Dr. Benson, how did you enjoy the gang life and how long you were in it before you realized you didn't want to be?
I was in it for about 5 years.
Long time.
5 years. And I made a change because of the fact of what took place, and I saw a lot of things that was happening around me. And I believe that no doubt it was divine intervention that came into my life and began to bring me into a new understanding. I had a broader perspective of life. I came out of the area of Mississippi where there was a lot of poor conditions, and I felt that I wasn't designed and was born to just to be a person of violence or crime. And what took place was...
Did it start bothering you to see all the black youth being in a gang that you all may have attacked and bleeding?
Of course. And I'm looking at these young men and young ladies that came from the homes of parents. You know, no doubt they, like my parent, wanted to know where's my son. And things began to take place. So what I began to do is to go back and talk to the same guys, some of the same guys that were still existing, and began to come up with a slogan, walk away and have another day, because I was using that most of the thing that engaged it is that I didn't walk away from a certain incident. I just stayed because I wanted to prove something. And
is that to yourself or to the gang members, or both?
Well, to me, yeah. Well, to me, I felt that a lot of my friends could have walked away and had another day. They could have been the father, they could have been the teacher, the president, the governor, whoever, the minister. But because they wanted to show themselves in a certain way, they took the risk of losing their lives, which now that's not a father. That's not a person that could have been a great leader. So this is why I take the term Saved by City. It's that you can become what I believe now, what God has destined you to be before the foundation of the world, is because you can walk away from something. You don't have to do it. You know, there's a thought process. There's something you can think about before that happens.
You're, Silky, you're believing in the same thing now. You do believe in God, right?
Yeah, I definitely believe in God.
Did you believe in God when you were in the gangs? Did you think about it?
There have been times that I actually didn't believe in God, or I knew that God exists, but God wasn't my sole purpose for living at that time.
And He is now?
Of course, yeah, definitely, because He actually saved me and pulled me out of the condition that I was in.
How did He save you?
Well, in 2001, I was in a very bad car accident, and that car accident, all of my friends were killed. But it wasn't just the car accident that actually woke me up. It was the events that led up into that accident. We was on a drug run to Los Angeles. We got off the interstate.
That's right, you're an ex-Crip out of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
the real gang, right? That's the real gang.
Well, yes, definitely. But we exited the freeway in El Paso, Texas, and like you can hear me, there was an audible voice in my head that told me to look at a billboard. And when I looked at this billboard, it was a real car heist up on the billboard. It was all crushed up. At the bottom of that, it said, everyone wore a seatbelt and everyone lived. I never wore a seatbelt in my life, but that sign made me put on a seatbelt. And coming back, I took the seatbelt off and covered up with a blanket, and that same voice came back and say, put the seatbelt back on, look outside. It was drizzling. We was at a place called Kerrville, Texas. And I put that seatbelt back on, and I told my friend, I looked over at the speedometer, we was doing 77 miles an hour. I said, hey man, slow up. He said, man, you've been tripping about death. And instantly an 18-wheeler knocked us over the side of the mountain, because it was in the Texas Mountain Trail, and everyone died in that wreck except me. And as soon as that car came to a stop, because it was flipping, the first thing that God told me, he said, now I brought you out of that, what are you going to do for me? So that was my calling point, and that's why I never could look back at the life that I lived. But I was willing to die in the life that I was in, because I was in hell with comforts. I had the Benzes, I had the women, I had the money, so I was willing to die in that hell because it was a better hell than I growed up in.
But God was that, and you know God was that voice in your head and saved your life, and you knew you had to change your ways.
No doubt about it.
And so right after that, had you already been 7 years in prison before or after that voice?
I had already done prison time. I started doing prison time, big prison time at the age of 16 years old. And once I came home, I continued my journey into hell.
But you had a 30-year sentence, I think you told me once, and the judge let you out in 7.
7 years.
Yeah. Was that before that long stint?
That was the earlier part of my life, most definitely. And when the judge actually let me out, I continued my life of crime. I think so many people get confused when they just call people criminals. They are criminals and then they're outlaws. So I took pride in being an outlaw. An outlaw is one that doesn't hide his criminal activities. He lets the world know I'm a gang member, I'm a gang leader, and this is what I do. I sell drugs, I shoot people, whatever I have to do to survive. So there's a difference in an outlaw and an actual criminal.
Now, your brother, did he remain in the gang life?
No. Matter of fact, my brother came out of the gang life, even in the drug dealing, because of the fact, after so many years, me and my brother didn't speak when I made the change. And now I went back to Chicago. Then I began to bring the concept to him, because he had got in a situation where he was given 25 to life because of drug deal. And And when he called, and I shared a word with him, and then I went to Chicago, had that sit down talk with him, which he wanted. He was at a place then that I never want to talk to you again, because he felt as though I betrayed him, you know, from the gang situation. But after that, he saw what had happened to me, knowing that only thing could have changed me had to have been a divine intervention from the rate that we was going in life.
Part of what I'm doing here with the Walking While Black is to come up with solutions. I know that you have a DVD that it's called Stop the Killing Inc., I think, right? Is your website.
Definitely.
And To Live and Die in America, KKKR,
Yeah,
right?
America.
Tell me what the KKKR in America means to you.
It's kids killing kids. Because when you look at our situation today, that's exactly what you see. You see young kids killing young kids in the communities. And when you really search to find out what is happening, your guest is a man of God, and he's bringing a message of God. And if that message say thou shalt not kill, then any messages that come back and say that it's okay to kill, that's in opposition of God, has to come from who? Satan. So you look at God's leaders and his messengers, you look at the message that they bring, and then you look at Satan's messengers, because just like he's a preacher, Satan got some preachers.
Of course.
And unfortunately, Satan's preachers are disguised as entertainers, as rappers, as individuals that are delivering his message unbeknown to themselves, because of all of the things that they are so-called being blessed with. But if you really look at their life, most of them are in a living hell.
Yeah, most certainly.
Look at Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Yes, most of them are in a living hell.
Yes.
Definitely. So you have to be careful on what you let your kids put into their kingdom while they're trying to make it to the kingdom.
Right.
Well, today, on this session, I think we're going to thank Silky and thank you, Reverend, for being here.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to bring up a young black youth to try to understand what he sees in the black community and what he thinks of the saggy pants. Chief Knaps didn't get a chance to tell you, but I can tell you where he's chief of Baker has a law against the baggy pants. Again, this is about finding solutions. So Silky and Dr. Benson, I work with you already, Dr. Benson, and we'll be talking to you some more about that, but we'll be right back as we take this break. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. We're still trying to find some solutions to walking while black. We've heard the Reverend speak, and now Silky is still with us, and I wanted to bring in a young man to talk about the sagging pants and to talk about what he's heard us say today, and to give his impressions of violence in the black community, and also of what he thinks of what's going on in the white police versus the black boy, the black youth, the black man in America. Brandon, say your last name for me, because I have a tight tongue when I say it for some reason, Brandon. Daigre. I want to say Daigre for some reason. I'm sorry. Brian Daigre. Brian is in his late 20s. He's gone through the phase, I think, of the really baggy pants. Am I right? Did you ever wear them down below your buttocks?
Not too far, just comfortably.
Just comfortably.
Just comfortably.
But I saw someone the other day, I was driving, and his pants, I don't know how he walked, they were down to here. And the belt was holding them here, and he was walking like this, okay? So is that got to be uncomfortable for a young man, right, to do that? Did that come from prison? I read somewhere.
That's what I heard. To me, it's just a fad. It's personal preference. It's just a fad, I guess.
But it's been going on for quite some time, years. At least a decade, huh? At least 10 years. You're young, maybe you don't remember.
No telling when it'll die out. There's no telling.
It's a long-term fad.
I just know I wear my pants comfortably.
I remember when I graduated from college at 19 years old, and I went to work for IBM. And they had a culture of what you wear. I didn't go in there with a mini dress on. I didn't go in there with some psychedelic looking dress on and with tight skinny pants, which I would wear out. So I had two wardrobes. But you know, in a culture, and America has a culture just being professional. It's no different than when I see a white boy with tattoos and nipples here and nipple rings here and here with long stringy hair. When people see you, I think the perception, or people like to call it a stereotype, is that you may be violent or you may be a bad person. Just because it may not be true, you may be working on your PhD. Just like this white boy with the nipple rings and the tattoos all over him with the stringy hair, white man, may be also working on, he could be a doctor. But what do you think, Silky, seeing did that come from prison, the pants with the low riding pants showing your buttocks?
Initially it was in prison because it was a way for individuals to advertise what was for sale. So you had a big butt, 13 cartons of cigarettes, small butt might bring in 7 books of stamps, but it's also...
That's real, what you just said.
Definitely, yeah. In the penitentiary, they would call it flip-flopping. A rapper started doing it, they call it hip-hopping. But the thing is that it's a form of rebellious for them. It's a form of them being able to express themselves. But they never take into consideration the real life out there, because they got individuals that's in the pen that come home sick as hell. So they looking at they butt because it's on display for them to see. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
But,
yeah.
I mean, we are a society that look at things and we create the ills. Oh, it's disgusting. But it wasn't disgusting when Aaliyah started doing it and she brought the G-string to the world. You know what I'm saying? Men were being entertained by that. But because it looks so bad for a young man to do it right now, people are starting to say, but the right people aren't starting to say it. See, if his girlfriend told him, look, if you don't pull your pants up, I ain't going nowhere with you, he'll pull his pants up.
Let me tell you what I did. I know his sister, she doesn't like them, and she's younger than, she's 24, I think 23, 24. I asked about 10 young black girls and a white girl also before I did this show, because white boys do some of it too. It's not just black guys. And all of them said they did not like it and would not want to go out with a man who was wearing pants like that. Would that, as Silky said, would that stop you if your girlfriend told you, I'm not going out with you like that?
Well, if that's the way
If
I like
you
to,
were, you don't do it.
if that's the way I like to dress, then she gonna have to learn how to accept me as a person.
And do you think most black men, that's what they would say?
Basically.
Is there anything that you have learned here today from listening to the Reverends, NAACP and Silky and the Chief, that you'd like to leave out?
Well, no, they spoke for themselves. Everybody learned a little bit. You learn every day. You learn. Everybody learned a little bit from hearing everything that's been said.
Okay, that sounds great. You're in school. You're on the right path, and we appreciate you for being with us, Brandon. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back with Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Welcome back. I have a statement from our NAACP president in Baton Rouge, and he says we need to have more organizations like 100 Black Men to help black youth through pain and poverty. Goodbye. See you next time.